Good morning from the second age of reason. Today, I'm going to just tell you something I've noticed. I have noticed that there's a system that is eager to point blame, to point their finger at things. One such thing is having to do with what once was called global warming, climate change, or you can even call it the climate crisis. Now, they're saying these things are produced by human activity, and I believe that could be true, but that's kind of deflecting the blame. Human activity. They say that because they want to blame you, specifically you individually. And it's probably, you are maybe a contributing factor to it, but you're not the entire reason behind it. The reason is more of the system behind it. The system. And when I think of it, think of things that do blaming. You're walking down the street and you see a tree. The tree has no fruit. You say, oh, this tree has no fruit. It must be due to human activity. That could be. Or you're walking down the street and there's a spilled can of paint on the sidewalk. And you're saying, what a mess. That spilled can of paint on the sidewalk must have been due to human activity. And the idea they want you to have, so you have to blame somebody, the painter, or somebody who was a passerby, knocked it over. And thus, they keep saying human activity, meaning you. But it is a sort of human activity, but the thing that is deflecting the blame from itself is what we should be looking at. And that, my friend, is something, and I don't like to sound this far to the left, but it is capitalism. So, let's look at the climate, the human activity. The reason the climate has been changing, especially in the past few hundred years, is the Industrial Revolution and the rise and development of capitalism. When you say you want to address climate change, then you want to shut you up right away, because if you are able to prove that it is capitalism, then you have to say, capitalism, what are you going to do about it? And if you choose to put limits on or impede their profits, you have a problem. And that's just one aspect of it, and that's kind of in honor of Earth Day, founded by a Wisconsin legislator, Gaylord Nelson. And even to this day, his daughter, Tia Nelson, is in the Wisconsin government, but she's not allowed to talk about climate change because the current government in Wisconsin is bent on supporting capitalism in its forms, especially corrupt forms. And so we're at a crossroads now. We have to see, who are they pointing the finger at? What are some other problems that are going on too? Because we have problems in society, and we have elections, and the candidates try to address the problems. One problem, is water. I'm in Wisconsin, and we have access to this water here. That's Lake Michigan. It's beautiful. The water is nice. It has to be purified. And right now, it's a public utility. I would try to think what would happen if they privatized it. So, there's other states where there is a water problem, for instance, California. And they have said the water shortage is because of human activity. It's your fault. And yes, there are humans behind it. But humans are doing things that are not natural in California. meaning specifically fracking, for one, which takes fresh water and contaminates it to produce petroleum, which adds to the climate change problem and the profits there. So there's capitalism behind the fracking water problems. There is farming, such as almonds and other things, and artichokes in California, which is probably not native plants to California, and so they have to water them with the scarce water resources there are. But yet they are exempt from the water rationing system that they've put in place. Although human consumption of the water is probably much less than that of the farming or the fracking. In which case, we can then say the human activity that is causing it is based in capitalism. We have these wars, and wars that are based on lies. For instance, the Iraq War. Now, no one will dispute that Saddam Hussein may not have been a benevolent, progressive ruler. However, Iraq now, is it better or worse than it was under his rule? And why is it that way? Because, in truth, capitalism had their eyes on Iraq's oil, and the President Hussein at the time had decided that he wanted to do something different with the nation's oil. And so, the American side gymmed up a bunch of lies to justify going to war there. And, of course, the same as in Libya. However, I don't think they have resolved the amount of oil that they wanted to get out of the deals. But yet, you can say that those wars are due to human activity and were inspired by capitalism. The other thing are natural resources. I'm thinking in terms maybe of China and rare earths, which are used to create computers and cell phones and all kinds of electronics. These rare earths, well, they're seeing that, well, China's the only one who's really been able to harness it, and so they're trying to put together this Trans-Pacific Partnership to surround China, maybe get China pulled into it, in order to probably get more resources out of the system. In so doing, you will compromise or damage the democracies of the member states. And then you look at China, what government do they have? They have a communist government. Even though they have been using some capitalist practices, one might argue that they are using capitalism to defeat capitalism. So, this is amongst many other problems in the world. I'm just saying, they're going to say human caused this, or you caused that, and you have to take austerity measures. You have to be afraid of immigrants who come from other countries who have been suffering at the hands of capitalism. There was a problem with a lot of immigrants coming over the Mexican border. They weren't all Mexicans. They were from other countries that have been benefiting from capitalism. And so those people had to flee. They have since tightened up the borders, so it's less of a problem. So it's out of sight, out of mind in America. But I'm sure it's still at the forefront in Mexico and in some of those southern and Central American countries. So when we go into the elections, like in 2016, I think we need to bring this stuff up. Because if you let them, capitalism is going to put you in the blame seat. And all along, it's them deflecting the blame and deflecting it to you. And you'll have to be sure to know the facts so that you can have a good answer when somebody asks you about this or that, or when they say, you're sounding like you might not be a capitalist. You might be one of those other ones. So you might want to consider that or study economics, because maybe it's not just capitalism and communism. Maybe there's a couple of other different economic models. And it's time that we start thinking about it and stop letting the system supposedly take care of itself. Because as we can see, it's not working. And so, with that, I will leave you.